Teaching log 15. Today I am collecting my students' ethnographies, and I'm actually going to return their second essays. I feel that my students need some time to outline their narrative. So in class, I have this activity where a student outlines an activity, kind of lists the characteristics of the main person and a little bit about the plot. And then it's like a free write activity. And then from there, pass it on to a partner. I'm thinking of my students working in groups of 3. So pass it on to a partner, and the partner starts the essay, starts the narrative, saying oh, this is what happened, find a way to start the narrative. And then after, I want to say 5-6 minutes, they pass it on to another partner, and that other partner reads the information and then continues it, try to maintain that same tone, pass it again. I want to do it where everybody writes at least twice, and the last one should be the ending. So the owner of the paper should read it afterwards, and then I want them to discuss, well, this is what I was thinking was going to happen, but obviously this ended up happening, because they read each other's parts. And then from there, I kind of wanted to discuss how perspective and experience kind of alters one's understanding of a story. So if it was saying the first time I went to the store, say you're 18 and going to the store for the very first time, is going to be really different than the people who have gone to the stores with their family members when they were younger, or the first time that they drive a car or go in a car or something like that. They have to pick something and then write about it. And I want them to kind of take away from this for their actual narrative. Another activity that I have for my students is where they have to where they have to they're gonna get pieces of a literacy narrative all cut up, and they have to read those pieces and try to arrange it so it's the beginning, the middle, and the end, and then they discuss why. I'm gonna be going around for that. After that, I'm just gonna return their essays and have them start working on the beginning part of their essay, so we can workshop those on Thursday and then talk a little bit more on that. They have about a week right now to work on their second essay, which is their narratives. Their first draft is due for peer review on next Thursday. And then by the following Tuesday, they should have it. So I want to start seeing some of their work. So I think that's what I'll be doing. I'll come back with an update on how that activity went, because I think it's a really great activity, and I'm really excited to see how my students work with it. That's it for now. I'll be back in a little bit. Teacher log 15 after class. I just returned all my students' essays and talked to one of my students who is failing the class. Not failing the class, but who received a fail in the essay because she did not meet the full requirements. As upsetting as it was to grade her essay, there was a lot that she needed to work with. But at the same time, I realized that this student is not a native English speaker or writer, and there's a lot of fragmentations in her sentence structure that made it difficult to kind of overcome. And I put a note on her rubric telling her to come see me, go to the LRC, and right after I gave her the essay and right after everybody left, she came up to me and said she had time to talk with me about her assignment, which was good, because from there I was able to talk to her about everything, all the resources that we have, and help her get a better idea of what it is that I'm expecting. I am giving my students the option to revise their essay, and it looks like this student is going to revise her essay because there was a lot wrong with, like, she met the page requirement just barely, or she was half a page away from meeting the full page requirement, but there was just a lot wrong with her essay that made it difficult to read through. Hopefully I have more students email me to talk to me about that. But to lighten up the tone, because right now it feels like I'm depressed about giving a student an F that they earned, I actually want to talk about the activities that I did in class. So the first activity that I had two activities. The first activity that I had is basically a group narrative where I had my students create a plot diagram and basically give significant points of the story that made the story unfold. Give a short list of the characteristics of the people involved, so like 2 or 3, but that are necessary to drive the story forward, and then a description of a scene, like bullet point stuff. And I guess my students are not used to, they're automatically used to going to their own group because they have a group. I noticed certain cliques within the classroom, so I disrupt that. Made them count to 5, and every group had 3 people. There was 15 people of the 18 people in class when I did this. An additional 2 people came into class, and I just had them do their own little group of just 2, but they still did the activity. And I told them, all right, you're going to spend a couple minutes writing the beginning of a story based off the information. Like, they rotated it. So the person who created the plot diagram writes the beginning story of someone else's plot diagram, and then after that they pass it on to someone else where they read what that has been said and see what the plot diagram shows, and then expand on that and continue. And someone made the point, is this seems similar to our class activity letter. I'm like, yes, that's exactly what's kind of going on. You're using context that is provided, but now you have details of the event. It did take a little bit of time for my students to get set up with that, and I think we spent a little over a half hour on that. I took attendance and made sure that they were doing that. Afterwards, I had them reflect on that activity. Is everything that you wanted? Like, I had the original writer of the diagram read their story, the outcome of the story, and then reflect on that. Did it meet the expectations of your story? Does it or does it not have parts that are missing? What details would you add to make sure that the story unfolds the way it unfolded? And I had them reflect on that in class. A couple of them like, oh, it's exactly what happened, because I gave them the details of what actually happened, and they just filled in the blanks. And something that I added was, a student said, something that I added was that that I didn't add, but this person wrote, is that they went to ramen. The narrative says that I went to ramen after this situation, which is really funny because that's actually what happened. And I was like, see, you gave them all this information, so they were able to create it. And then I asked students, well, did it fail? And some people's like, yeah, but it isn't exactly what I wrote, but I like this story better. So I had them think about those. And then after that, the next activity, which took a little longer, but that's okay, is I had them use snippets of a narrative. So the narrative, I printed out a narrative from a version of a book that we had in the past that no longer is around. New Voices and Wings. And I scanned those, made a copy, and then just cut up every paragraph and had my students try to identify which one is the beginning, which one is the middle, and which one is the end, and kind of organize it in that way. Some narratives were really short, like 4 paragraphs, so I gave that to the group of 2. And then the other ones were longer, where it had like 6 paragraphs, but they were like dialogue paragraphs within that too. And then I went around to ask them questions like, why do you think this is the beginning? And after that, I gave them the correct order, like I rearranged it for them, and I had them read that the narrative and then see how it actually unfolds. So one of the narratives actually starts off with dialogue that says, help, I'm on the roof of the building and I don't know where your office is and I'm lost and confused and just send help, or something like that. And my students were like, why would it start? But there's a bunch of different ways to start a narrative, and this was a really good idea for them to get an understanding of narratives in general. Next class, I'm going to have them work again as a group, but work on just the beginnings of the narrative, and talk out their narrative so that way they get a better idea of what to write for their next essay. And then I'm going to talk a little bit more about essay too. But I think today just kind of put the weight off from me as far as teaching, because I am mentally drained after grading so many essays. But that's it for now. Until next teaching log.